Films naturally reflect the hopes and anxieties of the society in which and for which they are made. Cold War-era films are particularly imprinted with the fears of the time. Let's start with a little background on the Cold War. It wasn't so much a war as it was a rivalry between two world superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Both were continuously building up their arsenal of nuclear weapons, and each threatened to destroy the other with them. Ultimately, mass bloodshed and the use of nuclear weapons were avoided, but the era is marked by crippling fears of nuclear fallout and mass destruction. In addition to the political conflict, the Cold War dealt with issues of culture, ideology, and belief. Films of the time were essentially a form of propaganda, demonizing Eastern ideals and canonizing Western ideals. They pitted communism and capitalism against each other in the form of a modern-day war of morality. Filmgoers were urged to view the Cold War as a conflict in which Christianity, capitalism, and anti-communism were synonymous. Thus, communism was deemed wholly incompatible with Christian family values, as it inherently could not exist alongside capitalism. Films like Leo McCarey's My Son John, released in 1952, do very little to veil this kind of message. The main character, John Jefferson, is a communist agent in America who has all the characteristics that a quote-unquote good Christian American would not have: intellectualism, defiance of his elders, and repressed homosexuality. As a communist, he betrays the Holy Trinity that consists of his country, his brothers fighting for God in Korea, and his Catholic upbringing. Ultimately, John is brought to justice, killed by his cowardly communist comrades on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, a prominent symbol of American democracy and freedom. William Wellman's 1950 film The Next Voice You Hear emphasizes the synonymous nature of Christianity, consumerism, and the family. The voice of God appears on the radio every night for 7 days, urging middle-class American families to count their blessings, no matter how mundane they might be.
This is God.
The film purposefully and openly presents the family as a traditional suburban American family, representative of the picture-perfect American dream. Perhaps the most obvious connection made between Christianity and democracy is Cecil B. DeMille's 1956 biblical epic, The Ten Commandments. The film depicts Roman and Egyptian despots who are meant to represent tyrannical Soviet leaders, while also defying God. The film even opens with DeMille himself addressing the audience to tell them that this is indeed the intention of the film.
The theme of this picture is whether men are to be ruled by God's law or whether they are to be ruled by the whims of a dictator like Ramesses. Are men the property of the state, or are they free souls under God? This same battle continues throughout the world today.
Films from the 1950s often feature holy men, such as priests or monks, subconsciously solidifying the unity of Christianity and capitalism, as well as the role of the church in protecting democracy. Most notably is Peter Glenville's 1950 film The Prisoner, a dramatized semi-biopic about Cardinal Joseph Mindszenty, who had been arrested and charged with treason in Hungary as part of the Stalinist regime's subjugation of the church to the power of the state. The cardinal's trial was covered by the media, and he ultimately quote-unquote confessed and was sentenced to life in prison.
The confession I may be said to have made while in prison will be a lie.
This provided the West with a clear image of communist injustice and Christian suffering. The film, starring Alec Guinness as the cardinal and Jack Hawkins as the interrogator, puts emphasis on the morality of the democratic West and the immorality of the communist East, shown through the systemic attempts of the interrogator to get a false confession from the cardinal. In fact, the tactics used by the interrogator closely resemble those used by Gestapo officers in Western films about World War II, helping to enforce the perception of communism as a form of brainwashing or mind control. The science fiction genre saw a resurgence in the post-war era. This is partially due to the fact that political and social anxieties are effectively reflected in science fiction. Fears of communist invasion and the possibility of a nuclear holocaust at a time when the nation felt vulnerable and threatened were easily expressed through alien invaders with far more advanced technology than humans. Invasions, particularly alien invasions, became a popular theme in films of the Cold War era as a metaphor for the invasion of communism in Western democracy. Don Siegel's Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956 features a quiet invasion of small-town America by an alien species of human duplicates. This represents the fear of communist spies in America disguising themselves as friends and neighbors. Nuclear war was among one of the most common fears of the time, with both the United States and the Soviet Union building their nuclear arsenals. In Eugene Laurie's 1953 monster film, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, the heat and radiation from an atomic bomb test in the Arctic unfreezes a prehistoric dinosaur who then travels to New York, wreaking havoc along the way. From just these few examples, it is clear that films are both able to represent the fears and anxieties of a society while simultaneously creating and ingraining those same fears and anxieties. It is in this way that films become propaganda, convincing the masses of an idea whether it is true or not.